evening and welcome once more back to a brand new series of the Open Door live webinar show with myself and of course Mr. Ian Child. It's absolutely great to have you here. So my name's Richie Clapson and I'm here with the other half of Property CEO. Some say the better half, some say not. I leave that entirely up to you. Mr. Ian Child, do you want to say good evening?
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all well. Good to be back.
See, he's cheery, very formal, isn't he, as always? Always. Guys, look, it's great to have you here. And just in case this is your first time and looking down the list of names, there are definitely some people here that we don't recognize. So welcome to this show. What have you let yourself in for, I hear you ask? Well, our aim is to give you 45 minutes of non-stop positivity. We started these shows in lockdown to bring positivity and energy to the marketplace, which is a bit doom and gloom. Well, it's a bit more upbeat now, but we still want to be 100% positive. So that's what we're going to do. And of course, it's all set around the theme of business and property development, isn't it, Mr. Child?
Certainly is. Basically, Richie and I run a company called propertyCEO, and our day job is training people how to become successful at small-scale property development. Now, of course, many people quite like the idea of developing property, but they think it could be a bit risky, maybe well outside their comfort zone. So basically, our job is to give them the support and the training that they need to basically do it as safely and as successfully as possible. I think the other thing that's absolutely critical at the moment is there is a whole raft of opportunity lying just around the corner at the moment, and it's going to create a lot of wealth for developers. So we wanted to help people find out what's going on, find out all about it, and basically see if development might be a good fit.
That's right. And of course, following on, I'm saying following on because I know we're still in it, but let's be positive. Following on from our global pandemic, we're now, of course, in a recession. And for some people, that's doom and gloom. So we've got to keep the positivity going right now for this. But here's the thing. Recessions create opportunities, but only for those that go and seek them out rather than waiting for everything to settle down. So we'll be here, as always, every week at a new time. Obviously, you're here because you know it's a new time. 7 o'clock. There's only one show a week now. We're going to give you back your Saturdays and your Tuesday nights. 7 o'clock every Thursday evening. We will be here serving up advice, predictions, guests. We've got a guest this evening, of course. Hopefully, he's going to turn up. Training, but above all, we're going to have a bit of fun doing it. And as always, we're happy to take questions. In fact, if we don't get any questions, we don't really have a show. So the more questions you ask, then the more we're going to turn up. I mean, obviously, if you don't ask any questions, we'll just disappear and no one will ever remember us. But please put them in the chat box as you go through. And just a quick say hello to a few people that are on this evening. Let's have a look. George is on, Sammy's on, Helen, Sarah, Peter, Dan, Ron, Phil, Nick, Derek's on, Simon's on, Gerdas is on, Raj is on, Sue's on. Good evening, Sue. Now, obviously, I'm saying good evening, Sue. Sue is literally our newest client on board with us. Sue has just signed up. Sue, welcome to the family. Yvonne's on, Trish is on, Anil's on, Roma's on, Rob's on, Jack's on. You're all on. And actually, there's a few comments over here. People saying welcome back. Hang on, there's a lot of comments coming in. Who said welcome back? Hello, good evening. Good evening, gents. Hi, everyone. Welcome back, says Mansour. Gerda says good evening, gents. Ron says hello, exclamation marks. Hello, Ron. And Michael, he's Italian. He said something like Buona sera. I don't know what that is. Is that Italian? Is that good evening or something?
Yeah, so obviously August not spent at the Italian night school then, Rich, is no. Still not quite close to Buona Sera, but we're getting there.
Well, no time at all. No time at all. Anyway, Mansour's already put a question in. Good. I like people that get in the box early. That's good. And Trish, hello, Trish. Welcome to you this evening. She says, hello, Rich and Ian. Great to see you both. Well, great to see you all on here. We absolutely love it. Clive's on. I see Clive signed up. Good evening, Clive. And there's a name, someone just literally coming on right now. We should mention their name literally as they sign up and type on. That'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, just surprise them as their name comes on. Charlotte's on. Hello, Charlotte. You've literally just logged on, Charlotte. Welcome. Anyway, shall we get started?
I think we should. It has been a rather hectic August in the world of property. So since we last spoke to you, sales and viewings obviously up, although no one quite knows exactly how long for. I think things are starting to get a little bit more back to normal, or at least whatever the new normal is. And we all remember the Prime Minister taking to his new digger and digging out a high-vis vest and proclaiming that we're going to build. And of course, one of the things that's happened is that the world of planning has experienced some of the biggest changes that it's ever seen in this intervening period. So, you know, developers normally make their money in one of two ways. They either find deals that are off market, and so they kind of reduce the competition, or they work out how they're going to do something clever that most other developers can't see or don't know how to do. And that is really where having a really good planning consultant, they can be worth their weight in gold. And we're lucky tonight to have one of the very best planning consultants in the country join us for, well, our first open door show of this second series, haven't we, Richie?
We certainly have. I'm going to introduce him in 2 seconds. And just a couple of comments I'm going to read out that's in here. Anthony says he's going to miss us on Saturday mornings. Anthony, get over it. You'll be fine. Do something else. Or if you want, go and watch some of the replays on YouTube and pretend they're live. You could do that. And Sue says, thank you. Sue is our newest student on board. Thank you. Looking forward to starting my development journey. Sue, we're looking forward to starting the journey with you and getting you on the other side where you're actually a developer earning some life-changing sums of money. And Anthony says, did you have a fab holiday in August? Yeah, it's okay. Didn't go anywhere particularly, but we had a bit of time off, Anthony. So all good. All good. Anyway, tonight's guest. Well, yes, we have the fabulous Colin Smith. Now, normally I'm not very good in normally at these introductions. I normally sort of slate people and you know, it's sort of reverse psychology. But actually, he's very good. We've had him on before, and I have to say it was one of the biggest turnouts we had on the show. And again this evening we got a great turnout. So we've got the wonderful Colin Smith, a very good friend of ours here at propertyCEO, and he's going to come on board and talk to us this evening, give us a little bit of an introduction about what's going on in the planning process in the world at the moment, in the PD rights and the white paper. And then he's open to take your questions. So please get some questions in the chat box. You don't normally get to speak to people just straight off the bat like this and get free advice. And this evening you will. So make the most of it. So first of all, Colin, are you with us? Hopefully he's logged on. Colin, are you with us?
Yes, good evening. How are you?
Good. Colin, can you turn your webcam on for us?
I can.
We better see.
Let's see if
look
this
at
works.
that.
Oh, look at that,
Colin,
straight away.
good evening.
How are you?
Very good.
That's a pretty good introduction. I hope I can live up to that. The best planning consultant in the country. Are you sure? Anyway.
That's what you sent. That's what you sent us. I just read it out.
Yeah,
Colin, I've turned over a new leaf. You know, I used to slate the guests, and I've decided this. I'm going to build them up, genuinely build them up, in with real sincerity. That I really believe that that's what they are. So yeah, you're going to have to live up to it now, my friend.
I know. And now we're in trouble.
And of course, this is our opening show for the new season. So all of our guests this evening are expecting a good turnout. Give us a quick wave if you want this to be the best show ever. Give us a quick wave, guys. Put your hands up. Oh, hands are going up. Hands are going up. Yes, they are. Excellent. And I've just dropped all the hands, guys. I've just dropped them. But give me a quick wave if you sincerely believe that Colin is going to be brilliant tonight. Give me a quick wave.
Oh my God.
Oh, Colin, we got 2 hands up. That's all we got. 2 hands. So most people think you're going to be rubbish.
Well, that'll be all right then.
And dear old Ritesh, you've had the whole of August, and Ritesh has written in the chat box, wave. You need to learn how to wave, Ritesh. Colin, are you happy to give us, let's start this evening. Maybe you can give us, you promised to do that. Hopefully you're able to do that this evening. Give us a quick overview of what's going on in the world of planning and PD rights and white paper. Are you able to kick off with that?
Yeah, I'll give that a go.
Right.
I've got 10-15 minutes to try and encapsulate 70 years worth of change. Not an easy task. The thing is the new rules have been incredibly complicated, and already, I mean, they're literally brand new, and already they've been interpreted in various different ways. But there's been 2 major changes in effect. And that coupled with Boris's build and the new white paper, everything starts with planning, everything starts with the land, as it were. And like I say, these changes are, well, they are controversial. I mean, there's a court case going through right now whereby some guys are thinking this is actually unlawful. So before we get our teeth too into it, it might not go forward anyway. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it certainly is a time of change. The white paper isn't law at the moment. It's just been issued. It should go through Parliament sometime around about end of October, maybe November. And there's some pretty radical things going through there. They got to streamline the planning system, and there's probably 10, 12 different items in that planning paper that are hoping to do that. Along with zoning, they're going to be changing the affordability thresholds. They're going to be changing the community infrastructure levy and a whole host of things. But none of that is actually law just yet. They're sort of muting these ideas, and we'll see what happens there. But they are certainly radical changes. But the things that have actually changed, we've been having a run up for this for probably last sort of 2, maybe 3 years. It was put off by Brexit, if you remember what the heck that was, Brexit, and then it was then sidelined yet again because of the horrible pandemic that everybody's going through right now. But then the government have rushed all of this through, and now everything I'm now saying to you became law. It became law on the 31st of August, and then again on the 1st of September. And where I think is it the 3rd today? I can't remember, lost track.
Yes.
But we're all legal and up and running. So I'm just going to share with you the headline points of the big changes. And you've got to bear in mind that it is complicated, and trying to dumb this down in 10 minutes or so is going to be a tricky one. So I'll give it a go anyway. So the first things that we got to talk about are the changes of use. Now, they actually started on the 1st of September, and the government have introduced a new superclass, a new use class, whereby they're taking all the old classes, and that included the commercial classes of A1, which is shops, and A2, which is financial and professional services, together with A3, which is restaurants and cafes, and they've lumped that all together with the B1 use classes. So it's B1A, which is normal office, B1B, which is research and development, and B1C, which is light industrial. And they've also mixed into that a few classes like D1 and D2, which are non-residential institutions and assembly and leisure. And they lumped it all together into this brand new use class, and it's called Class E. I suppose they run out of letters in the alphabet, but they've called this Class E. And that's going to be much, much easier for businesses to swap and change without the need for a planning application. And there are some loopholes, which I don't have time to go into this evening, but we do like loopholes, and watch this space. I think there's going to be a few fireworks down at the planning headquarters when this stuff starts to bite. Pubs are now further protected. They're always protected for use class A4, and takeaways use class A5. Now they've now been protected by being wrapped in bubble wrap in the sui generis use class, which is Latin for of its own type. That basically means you can't do anything with pubs or takeaways without a planning application. Then quickly we move on then to class F1, and that's got nothing to do with motor racing, and that's where they're putting together schools and colleges and galleries and museums and all sorts of stuff into this new class F1, includes churches as well. And lastly but not leastly, we've got class F2, which is a local community use. And weirdly, they put in things like swimming pools and skating rinks in there, which is quite strange. But what they have done, which is significant from a planning point of view, is that your small community shop, like your corner shop in your village, is now protected. If a shop is smaller than 280 square meters, which is not a great deal for a shop, to be honest with you, and it's not within another shop of a kilometre or 1,000 metres away, then it's basically it gets taken out of this brand new superclass, Class E, and it's been put into this Class F2, which is quite interesting. It's a lot to take in. I understand all of that. But what the government are trying to do, in effect, is to streamline it and make it easier arguably they may have made it a bit more complicated, but we'll see. We'll watch this space. Now, another thing to bear in mind is that those of you that have been used to using permitted development rights to change uses and so on, there's now a transition period, and that's because stuff is so complicated, they've got to almost wheel out the old and then bring in the new, but there's going to be a crossover period, and that's for almost a whole year. From now until the 31st of July 2021, that's next year, we will still have access to the good old permitted development rights to enable us to change uses of things. So if you think that through, there's actually an opportunity there to mix and match the old use classes with the new use classes. Now, the permitted development classes that are remaining just for the next year before they rewrite everything is Class G, whereby you can change a retail unit on the ground floor and have 2 flats above it. You've got Class M, that's retail to residential, 150 square metres, but not in a conservation area. You've got Class O, which is office to residential, but you can do it in a conservation area. And Class Q, which will never be touched because it's agricultural and it's still alive and kicking. You can always remember those classes that are still in use, because they are Class O, Class M, and Class G, which is, oh my God, which I think is quite apt actually, and then Class Q as well. So you've got this brand new super class that I've talked about, and you've also got the uses under permitted development of the ones that I've just mentioned. So confusing? Yes. Exciting? Definitely. So we're going to go on now very, very quickly to the brand new things that you can now do with buildings. And Boris has brought into play 7 new permitted development rights. I'm not going to go through them all in detail because they are quite, but there's 7 of them. Okay, you can take a house, a normal house or a bungalow, and in the case of a bungalow, you can add a new floor to it, right? Somewhere to put your granny up in the loft. So you can add a new floor to a bungalow, or you can add 2 floors if it's a house. The maximum height you're allowed to do is 18 metres, and you can add a maximum of 2 stories if it's a house, and it's got to be a detached house. But so that's the first one. So that's like extensions. You know that you can extend on the back and on the side of a house. Well, now you can go upwards as well. And then we've got 4 classes. We have got Class AA. And it's a brand new part of the General Permitted Development Order. It used to have 19 parts, but now they've got a brand new part, Part 20. And Part 20, Class AA, allows you to add flats onto detached mixed-use buildings. And mixed use means you could have a detached building, which is shops, and it could have professional services. It could even have a few flats in there as well. And once again, you can add 2 stories to it. We've got Class AB, which is exactly the same thing, whereby you can do this to terraced and semi-detached. Then we've got AC. You can see there's a theme here, can't you? We've got Class AC, where it allows you to add flats to terraced or semi-detached houses, all right? And you can also add flats to detached houses. And if you've been following that, that will of course be Class AD. But one of the most exciting ones is going to be a brand new class. It's so brand new, they've given it a Z. It's Class ZA, and that enables you to demolish detached flats or B1 businesses. So that, in effect, replaced the old class whereby you could take a light industrial and convert it. But now you can demolish detached flats and B1 businesses. It's got to be between 1 and 4 stories as existing, and you can replace that lot. But amazingly, you can convert with a footprint of 1,000 square meters. That's just the footprint. That's not the whole building. So potentially you could be looking at a building that's 4,000 square meters and pop another couple of stories on top of that, up to a maximum of 18 meters. And it's just quite eye-boggling, to be honest with you. I do a presentation, incidentally, and I'm not selling you a course or anything, but it takes me 2 hours to go through all of this lot with various examples and so on. And what I've done, I've provided a link to basically outline all of these changes. And I've given Richie and Ian a link to that, and you'll be able to get that bit later on. I think he'll email it to you. But there you go, very, very quickly. I think that was about 10 minutes or something. But we've got the paper, we've got the use classes, we've got a transition period, and then we've got 7 ways in which we could add up to 2 stories to existing buildings. So there you go. Is that exciting or what? Thanks, guys.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, that's a great intro, guys. I mean, there's a huge amount going on, and the link that Colin's talked about, what we'll do is we'll put that in the show notes on the YouTube when we put this up. So the next couple of days, it'll be up on YouTube. Go onto there, and in the show notes or on our website, indeed, we give that link that Colin's kindly given us. And I think, in the very short space of time, we're just trying to scratch the surface. This show is not seeking to give you all the answers, and as a developer, an important thing is, get the proper advice. You need a good, solid planning consultant on board alongside you. These guys love all this stuff, and by no means can you learn all of this. So, go out and engage a great Colin Smith, or indeed Colin Smith himself, to work with you. Shall we kick off with a few questions, Colin? You up for a few questions?
Yes, please. I expect there'll be quite a few, to be honest with you.
Okay, let me pick up the first one that was first out of the blocks, and that was Mansour. He was in at 7:04, so I love that. And he says, which is the best property conversion to residential under PD rights in terms of size and volume of investment? Oh, I'm not sure that's a planning question.
I would go for Class G. I always call it the G spot. It's the most exciting one. And, you can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things with Class G. And from a developer's point of view, you really got to know how Class G works. You can do it in a listed building, you can do it in a conservation area. You don't care if it floods, and you can have 2 flats for every retail unit. And it will carry on going forward, I'm hoping, once the transition period is over. The other classes are great, but Class G is so simple, so powerful, and why I really like it is that local authority can't stop you.
Yeah, no, I think Class G, is great, and I think in terms of Mansour's question is, and volume of investment. I mean, that's a great ratio. We talk about small scale property development with you guys, and we've got a lot of our students on board this evening here. So great to have you all on board, guys. And we talk about that's a great area of small scale development to get into and return some great 6-figure sums. That's good. Ian, have you got another question for us?
I've got one here from Peter, and Peter says, are the PD rights for light industrial buildings likely to continue after September 2020? And if not, is there still scope to convert these types of building without needing full planning consent? So you kind of touched on that.
Yeah, we did touch on that. You can change blocks, buildings, okay, and detached buildings, which can be a mix of flats and the B1 classes, or just flats, or just the B1 classes. And B1 includes B1C, which is your light industrial. So although a good old favourite, which was Class P in the old days, and were removed, in effect, we still can convert. We can't do warehousing now, but we can convert our light industrial. And in some ways, it's more powerful because we can add stories now as well. So it's not just converting an existing building, but we can add to that building vertically. So I think it's great. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then you mentioned in your summary there that there was talk about being able to demolish the buildings and replace them.
Yes.
Just to be clear, that you are also able to convert them as is and make use of the infrastructure that's already there?
Yes. What the government have done, as I say, it is a complicated subject, and it's easy to get mixed up in on the various permutations. But what the government have allowed us to do is that virtually any type of building, subject to certain conditions and limitations, there is a PD class, a permitted development class to suit you. And that was the whole idea, okay? Because some of the older permitted development rights were arguably a little bit restrictive. Now, the new ones have a lot more conditions to them. and it could be argued that the new ones are very much like a lightweight planning application. But nonetheless, the amount of permutations that you can now do, and of course, because the legislation is so broad, it's actually opening up a few loopholes as well, which is useful. So in answer, the quick answer is yes.
Fantastic. Peter, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I hope so.
Excellent, good stuff. We always have Bob on. Bob's one of our students, and Bob is mad about Barnes, as you well know, Colin, so you probably know who I'm talking about. He always signs on with a spoof name, so he's come on as Silage Sam this evening. So good evening, Bob. And Stephen's on, and Edward says good evening. Good evening to you, Edward. Good to see you on. Ron's got a question in here. This is an interesting one because you just talked about the pubs column, and Ron says, he says, I'm a bit bemused. As a pub, I mean, I'll tell you what, Ron, I'm a bit bemused as well with all this stuff going on. But he says, I'm a bit bemused. As a pub I was eyeing up closed for about 1 year, sold recently and has scaffolding up. I've seen no planning application and I doubt the 50 days have passed. Any chance the buyer used a loophole for converting it into 9 respective flats, which apparently, according to the builder on site, is what's happening?
There's not a loophole as such. Pubs are protected, but there is a way of looking at pubs in that pubs in the old days were just basically, boozers, okay? It's where you just go and have a packet of crisps and a pint of beer. And then they had something called expanded food provision, and it was like a lightweight restaurant, really. But some pubs aren't actually pubs as such, as defined. They are in more like restaurants. If you can go into a pub and don't buy any alcohol and have a piece of cake and a coffee, for example, and some pubs you can do that. There's a few well-known brands that will allow you to do that. Well, then it's not technically a pub. It's actually a restaurant. Now, when that happens, if it's a restaurant, there are various things that you can do. There's about 2 or 3 steps that you can take a restaurant and then convert the upstairs of the restaurant to residential. And I've done that a couple of times myself. And the downstairs still has to be a restaurant, okay? But that's no bad thing anyway. Local authorities do like to protect their pubs and their restaurants and so on. And it is possible to convert with a planning application part of the ground floor in most cases, but under permitted development through various steps that I've just said, you can do the upstairs as well. But if it's a good old-fashioned pub, which was in the old days class A4, from the 1st of September they are now protected properly, and you can't do anything with them apart from with the assistance of a planning application. Yes, so there's no PD which will enable you to bulldoze your way through. You will need a planning application to do something with a pub, unless it's not a pub and it's a restaurant.
There you go, Rob. Maybe you could have a little bit more digging and see whether that bemusement disappears and find out if it perhaps was a restaurant.
Yeah.
Here, what have you got there? Have you got a question in?
Yeah, I've got one from Derek. Derek says, hi, Colin. How will the authorities stop road developers from throwing up terrible and unsafe developments with these new PD rights?
They do have a lot more control with the new PD rights. All sorts of things need to be considered. One of the biggies is that we are very concerned about amenity, and that means probably garden space, that sort of thing. We are very interested in natural light. There were a few cases in the recent past whereby developers have taken tin boxes, converted them into flats without any windows. That basically spoiled the game for the rest of us. So there are controls in place that the local authority can say, well, that particular standard of building is not good enough, but it's still not the same as a planning application. Yeah, and I think that once the dust settles, give it 6 months or so, and a few applications have gone through, and a few have gone to appeal and that sort of thing. I think we'll all, as developers, have a much clearer idea of what the rules are, and more importantly, how to use them to our advantage. At the moment, it's all completely brand new, but the local authorities do have more control now than they did.
Good stuff. Derek, hopefully that satisfied your question this evening. So Mansour's got a question here. This is an interesting one. He says, hi, Colin, which is always nice and formal. He says, due to the new PD right changes, I understand I will be requiring the services of a planning consultant. Yeah, you probably will. Advice right in the beginning of the feasibility study to ensure that the project is worth investigating further. Which means, he says, I need initial advice on several propositions before moving forward with a short-listed one. Do you offer a fee structure for initial assessment and a fee for moving the PD application forward? So I'm guessing the answer is yes, you do offer, and you can do all sorts of fee structures for people. They just want to get in contact with you and have a chat.
That is, see me after class, definitely. But in all seriousness, the guys will send out the link that I've prepared, and it gives you the actual legislation itself that's been issued by the government, plus my little quick guide to help you sort of tick the right boxes to make sure that you know, when you're doing your quick appraisals, to be honest with you, it's down to a little bit of planning education. You need to know this stuff. You know, you can't keep asking your planning consultant or your architect, what can I do with this building? You really need to know that for yourself, and just have the bare bones of the information. I think it's absolutely vital, to be honest with you. So a good starting point would be that link, and my details will be on there. So if you want to contact me, then by all means, feel free. Thank you.
Man, so I think that's I think it's really important, and this is, I mean, our students that we teach know this, and say a number of you guys on this evening, including Bob, who's masquerading as something different. But I think the key thing is you need that professional team around you, and you know, strike up a deal with them where you can go to them for advice. But as Colin says, you need to know the overall. You're supposed to be the CEO. If you want to be the CEO, and you know, you're all part of our CEO family if you're on here this evening. But that's what we train people to be, as CEOs. And understand how you then engage with people like Colin here and get him on board, so you can get that overview, but then you can also have them when you need them to give you that detailed advice. Brilliant. Okay, that's good. Another quick one here from Raj. Are the new seal changes onerous? Question mark. There's an opinion.
Are the new what changes?
The seal infrastructure levy charges.
Yeah, well, that's been muted in the white paper, so it's not the law yet.
Yeah.
Still, community infrastructure levy is very controversial. You know, it could raise your bill costs by at least 10%. You know, they charge you per square meter for new development, you know, and new dwellings and so on. But the new levy is just basically a tax. They removed the word community, and they've just called it infrastructure levy. So it will be a tax, but what is going to be done, as far as I understand it, is now going to be set as an overall an amount, whereas currently local authorities can set it according to, not as they see fit, but you know, within reason, but it varies so much. The idea here is it's going to be one across the board charge. Now, quite how that's going to work when you have rural local authorities and the City of London local authorities, I've got no idea. So, like I say, this is only the white paper. It's a suggestion that the government are pushing forward. The thing is, though, with the current government, when they suggest something, they tend to do it. So, you know, if they're going to go to the trouble of issuing a white paper with all the new laws, pretty much, I think it's going to happen, to be honest with you, but maybe not for a year yet. You know, it's all going to coincide with this transition period, and the new rules will have to be written and adjusted and so on, and it's going to take a few months for the dust to settle. Great stuff,
Excellent. Hopefully, Raj, that has answered your question. And we're talking with Ron about the pub. He says he's going to watch it closely. Thank you, with a smiley face. And Mansour, we were talking about, you know, getting that advice in terms of maybe getting in touch with Colin and looking at the link. He said, thanks, Colin. No, it's our pleasure. Ian, what have we got next?
Got one in from Hillary, and she asks, she says, as a chartered landscape architect, I'd be very interested to know if Colin thinks there will be any changes in the need for landscape plans or LVIAs, which are landscape and visual impact assessments. What's your thoughts there?
I definitely think there will be, because one of the new conditions that applies virtually across the board now is the impact of amenity. And amenity to you and me means garden spaces. So I think that, you know, skillfully applying landscaping and so on to, which might be limited areas, you know, smaller areas, I think that's going to be very, very important. Landscaping isn't just about what happens in the ground. It could be all to do with roof terraces and balconies and God knows what. It's about the dressing, you know. And also, some of the new classes, they're going to have an archaeological, that's difficult to say, assessment as well. Okay. Well, if you're going to start digging up something to go and see if there's any Saxon longboats in your garden, I think that you're probably, I think you're probably going to need a landscape architect to put it right. So yes, definitely, I do think so. More work for everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Hilary. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Yeah. And Julian, I see Julian's just joined us. Julian, you're halfway through the evening, mate. The show's almost over. But Julian, hopefully you know this. I know you've been on before, but the catch-up will be on YouTube very shortly. So the bit you missed at the beginning, and you've missed a very good introduction about the new PD rights from Colin. So Julian, definitely go back and have a listen to that. But welcome to certainly this part of the show. Malcolm's carrying on with the theme on pubs tonight. They love their pubs, these guys. Malcolm says, and good evening, Malcolm, nice to see you. He says, if a pub has been empty for 2 years, does this change the planning rules at all?
How long have you got? You know, I tend to go off a tangent when they ask me questions. The thing is, pubs are protected, okay? In some cases, they have something called an ACV, which is an asset of community value, and that effectively wraps it up and protects it even more. Now, the thing is that, generally speaking, most local authorities have this generic policy, and it says that you need to demonstrate that your pub is no longer wanted, okay? And the way that you demonstrate that is by having marketing evidence. Generally speaking, the minimum marketing evidence needs to be at least 12 months, generally speaking, and ideally you have a couple of price drops as well. So after the first 3 months you dropped your price, then 6 months you dropped it again, just to demonstrate that basically nobody wants it. And you might need to explore alternative uses, maybe even community uses, before they will then think about changing it into residential. So changing a pub, an actual pub, to resi, which is what we're all about really, can be quite difficult. Okay, there's a lot of hurdles there. So not the loophole, but a strategy, and there's a few strategies, but one strategy is that it's not a pub, it's a restaurant. Can you get full planning permission to change it into a restaurant first? And then you may be able to do something. But the local authorities aren't silly. They might know what you're up to. But there's one way. But pubs are protected, and for very good reason.
Malcolm, thank you. Ian, do you want to go for one?
Yeah, actually, I've got a question just about the amenity issue. Obviously, with PD rights at the moment, you know, space standards don't apply, so that enables us to have more compact units. Do you think with the focus on amenity space, with the potential, you know, the design codes that are coming in, is that likely to get us kind of space standards via the back door, where the PD rights now need to measure up to more sort of more scrutiny in the area of space and so on?
That's a very interesting question. One of the new requirements is that you need to supply detailed plans. And I think the wording says dimension plans. There isn't any requirement for meeting the minimum technical standards, but on the other hand, maybe the planning officer may go past his remit, shall I say, and in his opinion, he might think that a flat isn't quite big enough, and there will be a conflict there. I can see that happening. An amenity is not actually defined as such. And what is important is that all of these new PD rights are judged by the national planning rules, not local planning rules. So the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, for example, does talk about amenity, but not with specifics, you know. And what we've got to be careful of is not to be too subjective about this. We need some hard facts and figures for everybody to comply to. So will it affect it? Definitely. And one of the things that people are going to get more used to, in my opinion, again, this isn't in statute or the law, but in my opinion, is something called the 25-degree rule and the 45-degree rule, whereby you, on your drawing, you'll be able to demonstrate whether there's an adverse effect on your amenity, loss of light, and that sort of thing. So you can Google that. It's the Building Research Establishment 25-degree rule and 45-degree rule. Very, very simple. Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors do a very good pamphlet about what that means. So there you go. Rewind the video and write that down.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Right, question from Trish. And hello, Trish, and looking forward to seeing Trish at our Academy Day next week. It's great, actually, Colin. We're back training in the room next week with our students on our Academy Day, so that's great. And Trish, we look forward to seeing you there. So Trish's question is, are planning departments still obliged to process prior approvals within 56 days, or has this changed?
Yes, it's changed. They are supposed to determine it within 56 days, and if anybody has been using a planning department within the last 2 months or so, you know that they just don't meet those targets. Now the old rules, they still comply with the 56 day determination period, by which point if you don't get your answer after the 56 days, you get it by default, as long as it did comply to permitted development rules in the first place. But the new PD rights, they still say, yes, it's got to be 56 days, but the local authority can just say, well, can we have an extension of time? You know, so you don't get it by default. That's what I'm trying to say, I think. Which is a shame, isn't it? Get your office blocked by default, but there you go.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Trish, hopefully that is good for you there. Okay, let's see what we have got next. Have you got one there, Ian, or shall I go for?
Yeah, I got one from Raj. Says, hello, the A team. Great to have you back. Hope you enjoyed your break. I certainly did. Thank you very much, Raj. Hello, Colin. Are the planning departments across the country following the same rules to be consistent, or will they still work with their own set of criteria as they do now? Because rules do vary between planning departments in the same county.
Yeah, if they're local rules, then it's local rules, okay? But if it's permitted development, then that is national rules and they apply to England only, okay? Scotland and Wales have their own set of rules, and you know, they do whatever they do. We're just interested in England only. So if it's permitted development, it's national and they should be applying to all the same rules. But if it's local policy, it can be a little bit of the Wild West, I'm afraid. But yeah, there you are. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope that answers the question, Raj.
And by the way, that was Raj 1 as opposed to Raj 2. There's a couple of Rajas on tonight. So the other Raj thinking, I never asked that question. No, you didn't. It was another Raj, which is good. Okay. Another one on the theme of the pubs. Anthony says, what happens where the pub is burnt down by fire or has no roof?
It's not a pub. It's sort of like a smouldering wreck. So I don't think you don't. Are you saying what happens regarding permitted development? It needs to be functional with that particular use. So if it doesn't have a roof, probably not. So what happens? Not a lot, really. You need full planning permission to do something with it.
Yeah. And Anthony also asked a further question earlier. Anthony, let's just pick this one up. He just says, as a reminder, when does the transition period end? Can you just let us know that one again?
31st of July 2021.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, let's see if we can get we're just running over time slightly, guys, but let's see if we can get one or two more quick ones in. I know there's a lot that we haven't answered, and I do apologize for that. But Anthony says, thanks, Colin. Thank you for confirming I'm the #1 Raj, says Raj.
It's not a competition.
Yeah, but I mean, I can say it's Raj M, but you're both Raj M, but that's even more confusing. But you know which one you are. You know which one you are. Trish says thank you as well. Let's finish with this question, Colin. Does Colin think that the planning application process will become any easier or less risky for developers following the shake-up in the planning system? And Helen has asked that one.
In theory, it ought to. In theory, it ought to streamline it. And that was the theory behind the permitted development, for example. In truth, it's just muddied the waters probably. Will it become more streamlined? Let's hope so. It's not really the local authorities' fault. They're understaffed. They're not particularly motivated, in my opinion. You know, they need a bit of help, quite honestly. So if there were some very strict rules by which you get your permissions, I think that would greatly help. It's the implementation of all of this, I think that's the problem. So let's hope it does, but don't hold your breath.
Alan, there we go. Hopefully that's great. Colin, look, I appreciate that. And guys, I'm sorry, there's a stream of questions that they're popping in all the time. We always finish the show if we can in 45 minutes. Never ever gone over an hour. We've run a little bit over the scene. We're going to wrap up in a minute. We'd like to get you guys away because there's some really great TV on at 8 o'clock this evening. Maybe, I don't know. But Colin, thank you for coming in as ever. We will post that link. That is terrific. Hopefully we'll get Colin back. Give us a wave as always if you'd like us to get Colin back at another time.
Yeah,
well, Colin, no, not you, Colin, not you. And Ian and I are exempt as well. Yeah, pretty much every single person's given us a wave, which is really nice to see. So that's really good. Yeah. So yeah, Colin, will you come back again at another time? I know we keep pinching your time. Brilliant.
I'd love to. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Right, Colin, good to see you, and I will see you again, hopefully before too long.
Cheers, Colin.
Let's hope so. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Wow. As always. Great value as always with Colin. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. So that is the end of our first show back for this new season. Hopefully that was a good one. We are now, as we said, we're on Thursdays now, every Thursday at 7 o'clock. Hopefully that's a better time. If you can't make it and you're listening to this replay, well, shame on you. But, you know, please try and make it live because it helps us. It gets the questions and it's really good. And it's much more interesting because you can have follow-up questions in there. And please bring a colleague. This is totally free. Bring a colleague to the next one. We'd love that to do it. And, you know, tag us on Instagram or Facebook and hashtag propertyCEO, anything like that. That's all useful to us. So, guys, I think that's the end of the show. So, Ian, do you want to say any final words?
Just a few sort of pearls of wisdom from tonight, really. One, you can see the value in getting a planning consultant, trying to find the angles and the best route of attack. I think one of the things that Colin said, really important, was that you do need to know your stuff. You don't want to be calling a planning consultant to make to give you the answer every single time. Once you've done your research, once you've got somebody in place, then make sure that you know you've got a good understanding of that part of the market, so because that's where you're going to be focusing on. And then I think the final thing to say is that there's loads of opportunity out there. Quite clearly the world has changed, but what you probably want to be doing is focusing on some specific areas, and maybe even one specific area. Certainly initially, make that your area of expertise, make that the place you're going to focus, and take the opportunity now to kind of work out what that might be whilst the world is in flux, because certainly there are some great opportunities around the corner.
Never a truer word said by my fabulous business partner there. Guys, it's great to have you on board. Please let us know in the chat box as we finish off if you've enjoyed the show. If you do, that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us coming back. Just getting the love from you guys. So thanks for coming on. Trish says, yes, thanks very much. Trish, thank you. And Anthony says, thanks, Colin. Well, Colin's gone now, but we'll pass that on. Big thanks to Colin and you guys for another very informative show to start the new season. And Julian says, first class as always. Very useful information, says Anthony. Nick says, thanks, guys. Raj says, which one, I'm not sure. Says, top stuff. Great show. Thank you, says Sue. And another good session, says Malcolm. Well, we've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed the first session back. And we are so looking forward to next Thursday. Hopefully you will. Have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. Look out for the link on the YouTube. And we'll see you soon. See you next week. Bye.